function. Actually, 2 is a little too high, but you get the idea. Has a graph that looks like this. Okay. Now I say estimate the value of f of 1.7. How am I going to do that?
Replace that. We'll replace x 1.7.
Where are we going to look at 1.7?
X.
Huh?
Where the x is supposed to be.
We don't have a, I said use the graph to estimate it, right? So what are we going to do with 1.7 if we're going to estimate
Find 1.7.
of 1.7? How are we going to draw that?
Find 1.7.
Yeah, you said, and you gestured this way, so I know you mean find 1.7 on the x-axis, right? Okay? Everybody should know that. We've done it. So 1.7 is about here. Okay, then what do we do?
You
Go up.
go.
Yeah. We draw, and what I say is we draw the line x equals 1.7. And where that line hits the graph, that's the point on the graph where x is 1.7, right? Which means that the y-coordinate of this is going to be the value of the function. So we then project over here. There's f of 1.7. Now on this scale, what does it look like f of 1.7 is? Is it positive or negative? Yeah, it's above the x-axis, so it's at y equals something bigger than 0. Very good. Now, to be more specific, what whole number does it look like it's closest to?
3-ish.
On this scale, if this is 1, 2, that's 3. But actually, see, my 2 is too big and my 1's too small, so it's probably a little bigger than 3. But if you draw a good, and if your graph is as bad as mine, I'll still accept it. Don't make it much worse. If it's much worse than the graph I just drew, I'm probably going to take a point off. But as long as you're looking at the right things, since it's the first thing that's really heavily graded, I might not even do that. Okay, but I do want you to try to do it as accurately as possible, because sometimes that's going to make a difference. Okay?
That's why I follow these lines.
Huh?
That's why I follow these lines.
Yeah. Yeah, I can follow your stuff. Sometimes it's kind of small. You want to make a bigger graph. But you're not the only one. Most of you are making your graphs way too small to make good estimates. Okay? So sometimes I say, make a big graph, right? But even if I don't say it, I'm perfectly happy to let trees grow, but if we need to use part of a tree to use an extra page to work on, it's probably worth it. Okay? Yeah, we don't want to get extravagant with that. Okay, so estimate f of 1.7. There's f of 1.7, and we see it's approximately 3. Now, is that difficult? Not a bit. Okay? So you should know how to do it. And then the solution to the equation f of x equals 3. Point 2. Okay? So what are you going to do?
Go from 3.2 on the y-axis.
Yeah. F of x, it's y equals f of x. 3.2's got to be your y value, so there you say, okay, here is 3.2. There. So we come over here, and we come down here, and what do we think? The x coordinate you need maybe 1.8. Okay? Now I would take a point off if you estimated that this is 3 and then put 3.2 below it. I wouldn't heavily penalize you as long as you're looking in the right place, but I'd probably take a point off. Okay? Yeah, you don't want to do things that are total nonsense. Now that's out of 10 points. It's not going to kill your grade, but you know, you want to avoid doing that. Okay. You want to solve that equation, what do you do? What do you always do when you got denominators in an equation? Multiply by common denominator. What denominators do you see in this equation?
X.
I'm sorry?
X.
X. It sounded like you, just my hearing, it sounded like there were 2 words there, and I couldn't get 2 words out of X. But it's probably just sound waves, interference and stuff, because I know you talk well. Okay. Yes, X, and that's the only denominator, right? So if I multiply both sides by X, my equation's still going to be equivalent, right? As long as X is not equal to 0. But if X was equal to 0, the equation wouldn't even be defined because you can't divide by 0, right? Division by 0 is undefined. So we apply the distributive law, x times 5 over x plus x times 7 equals, well, x times 3 over x is just 3. And if you don't know why, that's where you really need to go back and do some of the review that I've recommended on fractions. Okay? And x times, so we get 5 plus 7x equals 3. You want to fill in the details. I don't want any missing steps. Okay? Now that protects you. If you skip a couple of steps and happen to make an arithmetic error and I don't see that you were doing the right steps, you're going to lose more points. If it's a stupid little minor arithmetic error, I might not even penalize you at this point. Okay? If all your steps are there. But if I do penalize you, it'll be a lot less than if you skip those steps, right? Okay, so what do you get? Now I'm probably going to get it wrong, just to demonstrate, that you can do that. Okay, well, you subtract 5, you're going to get negative 2, so x equals negative 2 over 7. And then you check. Now I'm not going to take the time to check, but you plug that back in for x and simplify and see that you get an identity. Okay? What if the equation was 3 over x minus 5 plus x minus 1 equals 4. Well, again, you've only got one denominator. You really don't want to deal with fractions. So you write x minus 5 times 3 over x minus 5 plus x minus 1 equals, and we've got to put parentheses around x minus 5. Okay? Well, this means we have x minus 5 times 3 over x minus 5. And we have parentheses around x minus 5. X minus 5 times x minus 1 equals, well, we can multiply that out. That's going to be 4x minus 20 using the distributive law. Okay? Right? Probably let you get away with that. Well, this gives us 3. This gives us x times x minus 1 minus 5 times x minus 1. And that equals 4x minus 20. By the distributive law, right? X minus 5 times this is x times this minus 5 times this. And that gives us 3 plus x squared minus x, distributing the multiplication by x, right? And then it's minus 5x minus 5 times negative 1. We want to be careful about that. And then we do the arithmetic. You do the steps. We get x squared minus 6x plus 8 equals 4x minus 20. Now, how do we solve that equation? What kind of an equation is it? Give you a hint. It starts with Q and there's a formula. It's a quadratic equation, right? How do you solve a quadratic equation? Well, you got to put it into the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 before you can apply the quadratic formula, right? Well, that's easy to do. I'll put a couple of dots here. You're going to get x squared minus 2x plus 28 equals 0. And then you can use, I'll just abbreviate it, QF, quadratic formula, right? And while you're at it, you know that you could also graph that expression, right? Find the axis of symmetry, find the vertex, all that stuff. And that won't be on the test if you take it within the week. And that means before class next Tuesday. Okay? After that, there'll be another version that you will need to take within the next week that will include that other stuff. Okay? Stuff we've already talked about. At least mostly. Okay? Might have to clean up a couple of details. So, that's your deal. I do recommend you do that. The other part of that deal is you take it. Then you know at least what your score is. And if you want to raise your score, you just take the other one. And if you don't raise it, you still got the one you got. In other words, you get the better of your 2 tries. Okay? So it's a big advantage to preparing and taking this before class a week from today. Okay? I think it's a pretty fair offer, but it works. I mean, that's what I did last semester. And, those of you who are handing in homework, which is most of you, are doing at least as well as people were doing last semester, and they did real well. If you're not handing in homework, I don't know how you're doing. I'm a little worried, but hopefully, you'll come through and I won't have to be worried. Okay. Yeah, I think most people are on track to do quite well in this. Okay, I got a couple of fractions to add. You all seem to be fairly confident of that, so I'm not going to address it today. We've addressed it again and again, and I'll probably go ahead and do it Thursday, depending on what I think we need after I look at your homework today. Okay, number 6 you don't know. Do you know what a trinomial with a leading coefficient of 1 is? You know what a trinomial is? Terminology, but maybe you haven't seen it for a while. Okay, can you factor this? Now, one thing that I do see that people come in to this course with is pretty good factoring skills, so I don't talk a lot about it. I think most people have most of the skills you need for this course. Now, there's other things that are trickier aspects of factoring that I would just assume you know, but I don't test them because I want to test you on interpretation and relationship to the real world and all kinds of bigger picture things. And factoring is just a skill you can develop anytime you need it. But you at least need to be able to factor trinomials, and you should be able to recognize that this is x plus 2 times x plus 3. Why? Because the distributive law tells you gives you this. There's your 3x, 2x gives you 5x, and there's your 6. How did I get the 3x and the 2x? From the 3 times x and the 2 times x. How did I get the 6? From the 3 times 2. Now, I will say that that F word thing that I forbid in the course, that starts with F, ends with L, 4-letter word, okay? If you want to use that to factor trinomials, I'm okay with it, as long as you can verify it using the distributive law, okay? I actually think that that thing has a place in learning to factor trinomials, okay? It can be helpful. Anyhow, that's something you should know. If you don't know how to factor trinomials, go to one of those textbooks that open stacks, look up factoring and do the easiest problems, okay? They're harder problems where you factor by grouping and then use rational roots theorem and all that stuff. I don't even include that in this course. It's hard for people and distracts from easier stuff that's more important, okay? I asked a bunch of colleagues at a big meeting we had here, did anybody teach those things? And they said, nah, it's useless. Okay, just want to make sure everybody had the same opinion I do. I didn't want to think I was among a bunch of stupid people. And if their opinion differed from mine, they were automatically stupid. That's the way it works, isn't it? I think so. That's the way I was brought up. I don't know about you. Okay. Yes?
I just have a question about the quiz. So is it going to be on Thursday then, in class?